Well, if you're joining us, that is pure luck, and we're glad you're here. Little scheduling conflict on our end because our schedules these days are a bit chaotic, but we like creating this content so much that we're just driving through it here, Lori. As always, my name is Jared Heckber. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Brilliance, and I'm really excited about, I feel like I say that every time, but I really am really excited about this conversation today that Lori and I are having because this is my favorite value that we have at Brilliance, and I have become a believer in the value, even though it can be uncomfortable and it can make for some hard conversations at times, but it truly has been incredibly transformational, both from an internal perspective and externally when you think about our relationships with our clients as well. So looking forward to talking through trust or healthy conflict with everyone today. I'm going to pass it to Lori and let her introduce herself.
Yes, I'm really excited about the conversation because this value is one that's just been so meaningful for us as a team. But to introduce myself, I am Lori. I started Brilliance a little more than 20 years ago, actually 1998, so it's more like 23 years ago, actually. But my background is I went to Purdue in computer electrical engineering, ended up through an internship at NASA Johnson Space Center where I worked as a flight controller for the space shuttle program. It was a really exciting experience. I ended up meeting my husband at NASA. He also was an engineering student at Purdue, also worked at NASA, and eventually he went to work for Rockwell Automation. And he had a job promotion that brought us to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to Rockwell's headquarters for him. And I was trying to figure out what could be as cool as space. And so I decided to start a web development company. And 10 years ago, my husband Dave left his job at Rockwell to join and lead our development team. And as an organization, we specialize in working with manufacturers and distributors, helping them to implement digital commerce solutions. And we've grown. I think we're at 20 people, Jared, which is exciting. Growth is exciting. And we made the Inc. 5000 list last year. And really what's exciting, a part of that growth, well, there are so many things, but being able to help manufacturers and distributors reinvent themselves in many ways by leveraging digital commerce is just really exciting work. And to me, I think plays right into the conversation we'll have today around trust through healthy conflict, because both growing a team for ourselves, and doing that in a healthy way, healthy conflict is an important part of doing that well. And then, also for our clients, there's a lot of opportunities for healthy conflict in helping them work through challenges that they may have on their side too.
Absolutely. So before we dive into trust or healthy conflict, we have a bunch of values that I'm gonna actually just pull up on our new website here. So I don't think we don't want to go into too much detail on any of these, but it'd be good to just give a quick little summary, maybe, Lori, as I scroll through them. I don't know if you want to touch on accountable for excellence quick.
Sure. Well, I feel like I can take way too long, but the accountable for excellence is really just about us owning if we make a mistake, and being willing to be held accountable for our work. Driven is all about us wanting to continually get better and looking for ways to both for internally and externally to improve.
Responsive.
Yeah, responsive is all about being responsive communicators. So really, ensuring that we're getting back to customers quickly, that we have processes around how we communicate, because we believe that responsive communication is a part of successful work.
Wholehearted.
Yeah, so I love this value. Wholehearted is about us valuing each other as whole people, and really recognizing that we want to enable people to show up in our work environment and not have to be someone different than they are when they're not here.
I'm going to skip trust or healthy conflict and circle back here, but
sure.
Learners.
Yeah, so learners, if we weren't learners in our business, we'd be out of business by now. So learners is really the fact that we value, learning new information that's going to help us do our work better, learning that's going to help us to function better as a team, and we prioritize that.
Excellent. All right, let's circle back to what we're here to talk about today. Actually, I'm going to take a quick sidebar and say, If you are joining us today and you have questions throughout the conversation, feel free to jump in and punch them in the chat box. Lori and I would love to hear from you. And if you'd like, share where you're coming from. All right, Lori. So trust through healthy conflict. Would you like to define that one?
Yes. Trust through healthy conflict. So, this is really around the fact that we believe that when we're open and honest with each other, when we state our opinions in a way that demonstrates respect, that helps us to make better decisions. And also, as a part of this, like if we're in a meeting and everyone's heads are nodding and no one is voicing a different opinion, we know that that's a sign that things are likely going unsaid. And so we want to create an environment that really welcomes and is thankful for conflict that is that happens in a healthy way.
Awesome. All right. So this actually is a pretty new value for us. We as a leadership team, we added this 18 months, maybe 2 years ago. Is that
yeah. I was going to say 3, but I don't know. It's a newer value in the history of Brilliance. It's a newer value for our team for sure.
Why was it important for you to make this a value at Brilliance?
Yes. Well, so it really comes back to, coming back to our value of being learners. I love reading books and like getting information on leadership, what makes great teams. And one of the things that I was recognizing through that learning is that, there are a number of resources that really point to this idea that one of the most dangerous things that can happen in business, really on teams as the whole, is confirmation bias. And like that we find information that supports our point of view and then we head in that direction. And there's a book called Decisive by Chip and Dan Heath that really talks about this. And confirmation bias isn't the only bias that exists. There are others, but many times one of the things that helps us to be the strongest as a team and make the best decisions is us hearing points of view that are different from ours and being willing to really listen to that. And something that I recognize as a leader, leading a team, I want to hear from people that disagree with me, and also recognizing that has to be really intentional to foster that kind of an environment. Because inherently, being the CEO, potentially people may not feel super comfortable voicing disagreement. So that's why it's important to me. I'm curious, Jared, from your perspective, like what have you seen in terms of how this value is beneficial?
Yeah, well, for me, from a business perspective, it's been, I think when we started the conversation, I referenced it being transformational. And I think it comes back to what you were just saying, that even, at the director level, I think there are times that people maybe feel like they can't necessarily share information, or they kind of sugarcoat things because they don't want to be, looked upon negatively. And, that is just something that we have worked very hard as an organization to curb, because we want this open, transparent level of communication, because I know while I work hard, I know I'm not the best at a lot of the things that we're trying to accomplish. And I know there are people who have other skill sets that can provide me a completely different way of how I'm perceiving something or looking at something that might be a better, or maybe even not an entirely different solution, but maybe even like a pivot off of a current solution or idea. And so as we really started to embrace this, I personally have seen just amazing results come from it. And, as I then went out to personally, build out the sales and marketing team, sure, you're looking for roles that we need to fit within those teams, but it was also looking for people who believed in this value, who were comfortable voicing their opinion, who had a different perspective than I did on things, so that it wasn't that groupthink, that we were creating. We weren't all walking out of the room feeling great about one singular idea. There were 10 different ideas that we were challenging each other on, and ultimately leading us to a better solution than we probably could have ever imagined. Yes. So, we kind of touched on it, but outside of what we just said, why do you think organizations should be practicing this value?
Well, there are so many things. I think the reality is without this value, it's really easy um, for leaders to be in a place where they're kind of forced. From a leader perspective, it means that there's a lot of pressure on you to get it right. And that when you're practicing trust through healthy conflict well, one of the things that happens is that the system it builds trust in the system, that you're kind of counterbalancing each other. um, and you know so I'm a big fan of something called family systems thinking. And I know, Jerry, we were going to get into this in a little bit, but there's a book called Failure of Nerve by Edward Friedman, and it's a book that I'll bring up this slide here while we're chatting. Hold on, maybe I will. Is that going to work? Here, I got it. Now it's up to you, Jared. But yeah, there's a book called Failure of Nerve by Edwin Friedman, and it provides this concept that leaders fail not because they don't have the information or skill, but it's actually their failure to stand for what they believe in the midst of other people having differing opinions. And so they talk about being a non-anxious presence, which really means that you can state what you believe and hold to that in the midst of pressure to kind of conform to the system around you. And it doesn't mean that you can't change your mind. Like, you can state what you believe and then eventually be convinced that there's something else that you believe. But a lot of times what happens in organizations is that we don't feel comfortable stating what we believe because we know other people have a different opinion, and that's uncomfortable. And that leads to organizations not delivering at their best. And so I really love this concept from Failure of Nerve. And there's other resources that kind of point to similar ideas here. But this really helps to I think, for each of us as individuals to function at our best and to have an opportunity to be corrected by others on our team. And I know, Jared, we're going to get into some examples of where we've seen that happen for us. I think that's the best way to understand how this has helped out.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect segue. For me, someone I'm looking to learn about something new that I could be leveraging for our organization, I love to hear the examples. And so I thought it'd be great if you and I spent a little bit of time talking about, let's start with the internal side. We've kind of glossed over and referenced, an idea of what this looks like, but let's dive into our L10s. Lori, for those who are unfamiliar with the business methodology called the Entrepreneur Operating System, it incorporates an idea of a level 10 meeting, which is, everyone, the director levels have one, our leadership team has one, our marketing teams, our operations teams. We all have these meetings, and I'm drawing a complete blank on the true definition, but level 10 means that it should have like your full attention. You should be putting everything aside and focusing on this meeting, essentially, I think is what it comes down to.
Yeah, we rate the meeting and we want it to be scored as a 10. And so our definition of a 10 is it follows the agenda, we start and end on time, and we worked some good issues. So that makes it a level 10 meeting.
There we go.
Yep.
And once we've embraced this trust through healthy conflict value, we transition to adding a new blurb at the beginning of our L10s that references this. Do you want to highlight that blurb?
Yeah, so in our agenda for our level 10 meeting, one of the things that we'll do is that, we open by people sharing personal business best. But then our very next thing that we do every time we have a level 10 meeting for our team, we customize this for us, is that we say, at Brilliance, we have a value of trust through healthy conflict. And one of the things that means is that in this meeting today, we're going to focus on creating a safe space for people to voice dissenting opinions and to recognize that in doing that, that helps helps us to make better decisions. And we're going to be open to hearing disagreement with our point of view. And we're gonna share if we have a differing opinion from something being said. And one of the things that we're doing by putting that in our agenda is that we're normalizing it. So I know for me, one of the things that was difficult, challenging about practicing this value is that once you start doing it, it can feel not great when it happens, when someone voices a differing opinion, and sometimes and a lot of times that can be uncomfortable, especially if I'm really excited about my idea and somebody else is like, I really disagree with you. That can be a hard thing to feel in the moment. And so by saying that up front in our meeting, we're reminding ourselves, like, that's good. We should be thankful when that happens. Even if actually it doesn't feel good, it helps us to remember that we're on the right track.
Absolutely. And so within this process too, though, we have a running list of things that we're working on throughout the entire year, throughout a quarter, throughout, and just a general to-dos list as well. And they have timestamps associated with them. And so if you do start seeing yourself going red, or you're not on track with whatever it is you're working on, we are then supposed to challenge each other and bring up, like, what's going on? What could someone be doing to support you at this point in time? And that really is embracing this idea of trust or healthy conflict, because you're being vulnerable to your team at this point, saying, I'm behind on something, and you may have an idea of how to fix it, but people can challenge you and support you in figuring out a different way to potentially overcome whatever obstacle is preventing you from getting something done.
Yes.
So outside of that, we can dive into some more specific examples of how we use trust through healthy conflict within our organization. And I'll start. I'll lay it out there. So we just went live with a new website. Very exciting. It needs some love. It needs some TLC. We got to a point where it said we got to go live. We've been working on this too long. We're a web development company. We got to get this done. It's kind of the shoemaker story, I guess, in some sense. And it was on me. It was on me. And there's been a lot of trust or healthy conflict through this, because I've gotten lots of feedback, lots of ideas, lots of support. And I know it's coming from a place where we're practicing this value. We're going to practice what we preach. I may not want to hear some of it at some point in time, because I'm a little bit stressed out about it, but it's good for me to hear it, because it's also opened my eyes to other ways to accomplishing things that I was looking at it completely differently before. And to your point, there are times where you're in that situation where it's like, that doesn't feel great after we just spent, how long working on this, but I know that it's a valuable idea and that I should be considering it.
Definitely. And I think when healthy conflict is at its best, we can remember that we have a mutual purpose, that like we're all on that. We can find something that we're both driving towards the same end goal, which, Jared, for you in this, it's like we all want our website to represent Brilliance great. We can demonstrate that we respect each other, and then that makes it easier, hopefully, fingers crossed, a little bit easier to hear that feedback. I know for me, an example I can think of recently is that we were in our leadership L10. I work with, so my husband also works in the business with me, as I mentioned, and he's on our leadership team. And I opened an issue for discussion and said, look, we don't have a lot of time today. We need to hit this in 10 minutes. We need to make it through it quick. And here's the issue. Let's discuss this quickly. And in the discussion, Dave said, discussing the issue this way isn't set up for success. This is, and said, we really need to take it outside of this meeting. And in the end, restructuring how we were approaching that conversation helped us get to an end goal that everybody was more comfortable with. And also in that meeting, hearing him say that to me, like, stung a little bit, right? It was like the way you wanted to do this isn't the right path. But what I think is really interesting, being able to reflect on it after the fact, is I think it displayed like he was direct about his feedback. This isn't the right way to work this issue. I knew, and to me, sometimes people say, like, how do you work with your husband in a business? Practicing this value, maybe this is another reason this value is important to me. This value, I think, is super important in marriage and in business across the board. This value is important because you need to, at the end of the day, I absolutely know that Dave has my back, that he cares a ton about this organization. And that should, like, while, I don't have the same relationship with everyone on our team, but those things are true. Like, we should know that we have each other's back at the end of the day, that we care about this team. And therefore, we're going to hear the feedback that we have for each other and know that it's not personal. We're just really trying to get to the right end result.
Yeah. I'll throw in one more example here, or if you have another as well, feel free to jump in. My sales person, our e-commerce growth specialist, and I will meet frequently on opportunity, and we will have conflicting opinions on how we should be approaching next steps with the opportunity, or if we've worked a deal and we get some feedback on something, we will challenge each other on what should be the appropriate next step, or how we should handle some feedback that we've received in the past. And while there have been situations where we both are not feeling great because they're challenging each other, we collectively know, I think there's that true level of trust there, that we know it's coming from a place where we both want to win. We both want to see success for the organization and ourselves. And ultimately, we trust the fact that there's value in the other person's opinion through that conflict. And it's led to some really great growth for us as a team, as well as some good wins as an organization.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can think of so many examples. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about this value when it's practiced well is, even if in the end you don't make a different decision, like even if I have a belief that this is the thing to do and someone disagrees with me, and I hear them and we really talk it through, and in the end, even if we still do what my original plan, the way we do it will be different. Typically, that's what I find, is that, like, by hearing that feedback, we hear some of the concerns and are able to really take a better approach with whatever we're doing.
Right. And I think for future conversations as well, then the next time a similar issue or conversation takes place, you've had some conversations that can form or outline where we know there might be some potential issues that you need to comb through. And it really has become a incredibly powerful piece of how we operate. I'm going to transition us into the external piece. And this part can be tricky, but we believe, the customers that we have believe in this value just as much as we do, and they see the value in it. And we can touch on a variety of opportunities. But I'd like to start with, Lori, our on time and on budget guarantee, and how much we love it, but the inherent conflict that comes with it.
Yeah, it does set up so we have an on time, on budget guarantee where we say, once we go through a paid discovery process, at the end of that step, we'll guarantee the price of a digital commerce project, or a project we're doing for a company, and the timeline. And these projects can be 6 months, sometimes 9 months, or a year-long projects, and very complicated, very complex. And so there's a lot that can happen in the midst of that project that could cause us to be in a place where we're losing money potentially, right? And we're willing to take on that responsibility because we know that is a risky situation for a customer, and we believe in our ability to manage that well. But what that does is that forces us to be the ones who are calling out if there are things that are going to set us off track. It inherently sets up conflict. In order for us to be able to deliver on that promise to our customers, we need to voice if there are things that are getting us off track. Which I think is and ultimately what we've heard from customers is that they value that. So I think, when you have someone who, and I think if you think of the opposite situation, right? If you think of, we certainly have inherited projects from where a customer started with another firm where there wasn't a guarantee, where they didn't go live nearly close to on time, where the project went significantly over budget. And oftentimes what's missing is someone being willing to raise their hand and say, there's a problem here. Like we thought this was going to be the plan, but now we see things that are a problem. And it's not like, just because we have the on time and on budget guarantee, that doesn't mean problems never happen. it does mean we have to be on top of voicing, here's an issue, and we need to work it. We need to all collaborate on how we're working it so this thing doesn't get out of control.
Yeah. I think a similar situation that we see the value being practiced is through our success plans, our support plans. And there's a variety of scenarios in which we could probably describe, but I think one of the most common ones is, and this isn't, I guess, just subject to the success team as well, but, why are we charging for meetings? Having an understanding of, how we approach billing on certain things, and there can, in the other agencies out there can probably attest to it. Like you'll get questions and get some good healthy conflict through specifically the conversation around why am I being charged for a meeting to talk about an idea I have. Well, for us, the way we work, if you're on a support plan, that's time that we're dedicating to you, and we need to work through that. They may have a different perspective. We've heard them before. If I'm just coming to you with an idea and I want to talk through something before I decide if it's even valuable to be, using you guys to implement, then why, can we not charge for that essentially? But I think we've seen the situation create some interesting conversations, some good conversations. We end up building a lot of great trust with our customers through that process because they understand and they end up having a different perspective than they probably did before.
Yeah. Definitely. I think about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jared. Go ahead.
No, if you have something to add, go ahead. But
well, it might have been where you were going too. I was just thinking about one of our clients. It's on a success plan that is voiced to us that one of the things that they really value is that when they come to us with ideas, that we're willing to say, "I hear you, but I don't think that's a good idea." we hear what you're asking for. We think actually you may want to consider this instead. And ultimately, I think for many companies, that's actually what they want. They may not always ask for it, but I know it's what I want. I know if I ask someone who's an expert in their field to go do something for me, but actually what I'm asking for isn't the best path, I want someone to tell me. So.
Yeah, that was my favorite. You nailed it. We could list out every customer has them. I mean, and they should be thinking of every possible opportunity to leverage digital and all the cool ways to innovate. But there probably are things that they are less familiar with. And so as they start, they see something that another organization has done that they think is cool, or they want to try to leverage internally, and they start pushing for it, and they come to us and we start diving into it, and we give them some feedback, some healthy conflict around where there might be some problems with that idea. It leads to a really great conversation because ultimately, there are times where we'll figure out how we can make this work, or we warn them that this could be a really bad path to go down. And, that trust really starts to bloom through those conversations.
Definitely.
But let's go negative for a second here with our we get. I feel like Gartner would be yelling at me right now if I said let's go negative. But let's talk on if you don't have those conversations. If you're an agency, if you're Brilliance, and you say, and someone comes to you with that idea and they say this is what I want to do, and we figure it out. We're a smart group. We can get it done, and they end up having this feature, whatever it is that they want implemented, and it does nothing. It generates zero revenue. It's not valuable to their users.
Yeah.
I mean, who wins in that scenario? No, I mean, we got paid for time, but they probably have a little bit of a negative perception, I paid you guys for something that's completely useless for me.
Right. And I would say the other negative that can happen there too is not just that sometimes it can generate revenue or accomplish some of the goals, but it may have a high maintenance cost or be set up in a way that is going to cause issues 6 months or a year from now. And so what you in an ideal scenario, sometimes organizations will need to make decisions that are short term, that are this is going to benefit us now, it's going to cost us more later. But what you want a partner who's able to tell you, hey, just so you know, by going this path, this is going to be cheaper now, but cost you more later. If that's okay with you, we'll do it, right? So you want to make sure you understand all of what understand the choices you're making and their implications, and have a partner that can support you in that.
Absolutely. That to me, since joining Brilliance. I've been here for a little over 5 years now. That is one of my favorite things about working with this group is that we will not only, we may give you that feedback and say, we can do that, but you're going to have problems down the road. And, we're transparent about that versus someone who will say, yeah, we'll get it done, and just omit that last part because we know it's beneficial to keep it quiet for the time being.
Right.
Yeah. Anyhow, so yes. Lori, are there any other resource? You referenced a couple at the beginning. Do you have any other resources or tips, books that you're fond of that really preach and support this idea?
I have so many. We'll put links in that in the video that's posted. But there's a podcast called The Non-Anxious Leader that really goes into this idea of family systems theory, and it's actually the host of it is he's a pastor who I think is in charge of Camp Network at this point. But so a lot of the concepts of family systems theories are used in religious settings, but also organizationally as well in businesses, because obviously, leadership and managing teams is true in both of those settings. Unlocking Us, there's a podcast by Brene Brown, and one of the weeks she has on a guest on I'm Sorry, How to Apologize and Why It Matters. Harriet Lerner is on with Brene Brown. And I think for healthy conflict to work, you have to know how to apologize, because people are going to tell you did something wrong, right? That's another aspect of this, is being willing to hear when we messed up and being willing to own it and apologize. So knowing how to apologize well, I think, is important. There's a book called Dare to Lead by Brene Brown that hits on many of these same topics. The Failure of Nerve, I already mentioned. Crucial Conversations is a book that talks about having tough conversations with people, that is really good. 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni is also one that really talks about that's one of the aspects of building trust as a team, is being willing to have these kinds of conversations. And there's another YouTube video on Bowen family systems theory that I've got that I can share a link to too. So many resources. I'll put them out there. I'd love to hear what other resources people have as well. You can share them with us too.
Great. Well, thank you everyone who took the time to join us today. As you can tell, this is definitely one of our favorite topics of conversation. And so if you are interested in just having a conversation or sharing additional resources where you've seen this practiced or other ideas around trust or healthy conflict, we are all ears. If you are interested in having a conversation around digital strategy, commerce, you name it, you can reach Lori and I on LinkedIn. Thank you all for your time, and we hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks.